You're tuned in to the Reality Fred podcast. Food and travel, cool stuff, weird stuff, entertainment, and more. You made the choice to be here, and my friend, you've chosen wisely. Now buckle up, because it's time to get started. It's time for the Reality Fred podcast.
Hello and welcome back to all the Reality Fred podcast listeners out there. We have a great episode today. I'm very excited. Today I'm going to be joined by someone who I really enjoy following online, especially in their adventure of doing podcasts, both audio and video, and that is Mr. Will Cooper of cigar-coop.com. I've been turning to cigar-coop.com now for a long time whenever I want to get a good cigar review, and recently I've just been really enjoying watching Will Cooper take Cigar Coop to greater levels and expand his cigar new media adventures with everything he has going on with his Cigar Coop media, as well as the Smooth Draws radio show that he does out of Atlanta. So we're going to be talking with him very shortly, which I'm very excited about. But before we get into that, I do want to just mention briefly that just today I posted a blog on realityfred.com. Last week I took a brief road trip, just a one-day trip out to Easton, Pennsylvania, which is in Eastern Pennsylvania, to visit the cigar advisors at Famous Smoke Shop. I've also been following the cigar advisors now for quite some time. They go live every Wednesday on their Facebook page, so I've been following them for a round, and I've friended those guys on Facebook, and seemed like really interesting guys. So I finally made the decision to head out there last week and just meet them in person and explore the facilities there at Famous Smoke Shop. So it was a really cool trip. I just put up a blog about it. So if you're interested in seeing a little bit behind the scenes and even catching the live episode from Facebook that I got to join them on, I have that embedded on the website as well. But back to the main topic today, the main celebrity cigar reporter, writer, reviewer, radio show host, podcast maker. He pretty much does everything, and it's just awesome and exciting that finally able to do this today. He's a very, very busy man in the world of cigars, but he did carve out some time in his busy schedule to join us here. So all of you Reality Fred podcast listeners that are interested in the world of cigars can enjoy this episode. So put together 10 questions that I wanted to ask Mr. Will Cooper, and I have some bonus lightning round questions for him at the end. So without further delay, let's go ahead and get started with that interview that I just recorded here a few minutes ago. So joining me today is a very special guest, Will Cooper. Will Cooper is founder, CEO, and editor-in-chief for Cigar Coop and its media brands, and in my eyes, one of the hardest working people in the cigar industry, making it his mission to deliver 365 days a year of cigar-related news and content. Will founded Cigar Coop in 2010 and was also co-owner and co-host of Stogie Geeks from 2013 to 2017. Recently, Cigar Coop has added 2 new podcast brands, including Cigar Coop Primetime Show and Primetime Special Edition. He can also be heard over the airwaves on Smooth Draws radio show, broadcast from the ESPN The Fan 2, radio studios in Atlanta, Georgia. For those of you not in the Atlanta region, you can do what I do and just follow them via the Smooth Draws radio podcast. Will was also one of the founders of Cigar Media Association and serves as a Cigar Rights of America ambassador. Mr. Will Cooper, it is a pleasure to finally do this podcast with you. Thank you so very much for taking the time to join me this evening.
Fred, really glad to be on, so thank you very much for the invitation.
Absolutely. And, Will, like I mentioned, before we kind of jump into the questions that I have for you, I did want to give you the mic, the opportunity, for those of out there listening that might not already be familiar with Cigar Coop and your reviews and your reporting and the things that you do. If you want to take a moment and just let everybody know how they can follow you and the different media brands you have out there and how they can kind of get involved in the world of Will Cooper.
Oh, thank you, Fred. So for folks who they could go to cigar-coop.com, and that's it's a daily website where there'll always be original content every day. On that website, you can also follow our 2 podcasts, Primetime, which is a weekly podcast dedicated to the cigar industry, and Primetime Special Edition, which is we kind of do those several times a month. They're more in-depth type features we're doing on there. And all those could be accessed from cigar-coop.com. And, of course, you can find me on Twitter at cigar_coop and on Instagram at cigar_coop and on Cigar Coop on Facebook. As far as Smooth Draws goes, you can also check out Smooth Draws, www.smoothdraws.com, where we have all of our show content there.
Fantastic. And for those of you listening to the podcast, I'm going to be sure to include all the links that Will just mentioned in the description field of the audio podcast that you're listening to, or if you're listening directly to it via the realityfred.com website, on the actual podcast page, I will include all the links there as well. And Will, I just wanted to let you know personally, the way I found out and kind of discovered you was about a year or so ago. I started just really getting into podcasts in general on my phone, and one evening was enjoying a cigar and thought, I wonder what kind of good cigar podcasts are out there. And that's when I discovered Stogie Geeks, and really just went Stogie Geeks heavy for a while there, following you, and then once I realized you had the website Cigar Coop, that pretty much became my go-to destination for all my cigar reviews, and just kind of have been following you ever since. So I just wanted to kind of give you that connection there.
Thank you, Fred. Appreciate it.
So what we're going to do today is, Will, we're going to turn you from, normally you're the interviewer, but we're going to turn the tables and turn you into the interviewee today. So I have 10 questions that I've prepared that you've been so kind to sit down and join me in. And then at the end, I do have a quick lightning round worth of questions. So you ready to get started here?
I'm ready.
Okay, fantastic. So what I was curious about, and some of these questions are for my own personal curiosity, today you're involved in so many things relating to cigars. You do the reviews, your audio and video podcast, the Smooth Draws radio show. What I was hoping you could do is take us back to 2010 when you started Cigar Coop. What was the beginning? Did you just start with reviews and then it kind of grew from there, or what were you doing initially when you started Cigar Coop?
Actually, something completely different.
Okay.
The reviews actually came a little bit afterwards. But long story short, in 2010, I went to the IPCPR trade show. I had been into cigars heavy at this point already. And a local retailer basically I was already kind of geeking out on cigars, and a local retailer needed some help with buying. So I went on staff with him to help him with the buying. Okay. And that show was in New Orleans. I walk into this trade show. Now, if you're like a cigar geek, stogie geek, or nerd or whatever, you walk into this place and you are in Disney World. These booths are incredible. You're meeting all the people in the industry, and it's this little city that's built in a convention center for like 3.5 days. And it hit me so much that I said, I need to kind of capture these moments, right? So as I'm doing the buying, I'm taking pictures and stuff. And I kind of took all these pictures and took notes, and I said I need to put them somewhere. So I created a very simple blog, right, where I started putting these things out there, right. Again, it was kind of going to be a short-term thing. The next thing that happened was I started getting companies who I'd met at the trade show saying, "Hey, we like you. We like what you've been putting out there. Why don't you do a few reviews?" So then the reviews started, and it's now will be 8 years next month. On the 15th.
That is awesome. And I'm a photographer myself. I love going down to New Orleans, and I have been to their convention center for big photography conventions. Never IPCPR, of course, but I know what you mean, just how much it can be an awe to go in there and just see these enormous booths. And I've seen the pictures from IPCPR, so that's awesome. And we will follow up in a little bit with an IPCPR question as well.
Sure.
So as I mentioned before, I kind of discovered you first via Stogie Geeks when I was trying to look for podcasts to follow for cigars. So what I wanted to ask is, in 2013, when you began doing Stogie Geeks, can you give us some background on how that came together and what the vision was when you started with Stogie Geeks and how that was different from what you were doing at that time then with Cigar Coop?
Right. No, so then eventually what happened is, moving forward, I got into the cigar news piece because people basically, I was talking so much about cigar news in a store that people said you need to start covering it. So as I was starting to cover it, really what I started to do is I started to seek out every other source to see what people were doing, and that included podcasts. And I'm a fan of a lot of the podcasts there. And it was, I'd say, late 2012, I kind of got hooked on Stogie Geeks, much like you did. And, there was, at the time, we had a host named Stogie Santa, who was really, he's just kind of this curmudgeon, so to speak. And Paul, Paul's like the quarterback, the anchor. I could see he knew what he was doing. And I really became a fan of the show. I started interacting with them. And in 2013 at the IPCR trade show, I met Stogie Santa. And I'll just say this, that Stogie Santa and we are very close today, and it was like a kindred spirit. I just found my older brother, so to speak. I don't have a brother. We just hit it off, and the next thing is he made a phone call to Paul saying, hey, why don't we have Coop on a couple of shows? And then that just ended up being a great 3.5-year run that we had with that show. Now, why did I end up doing that is I felt that I was taking Cigar Coop into this more of this hardcore news periodical piece, and I felt that I was very interested in a podcast because I felt it would give me another avenue to express myself. And sometimes it's better to express yourself via voice. And I found that we had 4 guys at the time on Stogie Geeks. We all really connected on there. Eventually it just ended up, because of schedules and stuff, it really just ended up being me and Paul. But that was really the goal, is to kind of have not try to duplicate Cigar Coop, but have those discussions like you would, with guys, but bring some credibility to it as well. Like, make sure we have our fact-checking down, and we're just really buttoned down on what we're talking about, so people can, we'll have fun what we're talking about, people can also really relate to what we're doing.
Yeah, and it was very successful. Once I discovered it, I was hooked. Not only was it incredibly informative, but it was incredibly entertaining. You guys did a really good job, and it was actually a while before I even realized that there was a whole video production in it, because I discovered it as an audio podcast on my phone, and then it was maybe 2 months later that I discovered it on YouTube and realized, holy cow, every one of these episodes I've been listening to is this high-end production. So I did want to comment and let you guys know that the production quality is fantastic, and was really impressed and loved it.
Yeah, thank you.
So, again, out of my own curiosity, another question that I had for you, as I've been following you and Cigar Coops online, there's occasions where I'll kind of see that in your own branding, you'll mention Cigar Coop as being rumor-free. I don't know if that's exactly the way you phrase it, but I think a lot of times I see it as you saying, Cigar Coop is rumor-free. And I was always kind of curious when I hear that and see that, from your perspective, when you started Cigar Coop, did you see a lot of rumor-type reporting in the cigar industry, and is that something that you still see today?
It was really bad about 7 or 8 years ago. And I think we were in the infancy of the blogging phase and online media for cigars, and there was a lot of wrong information going out there. And but then there were other people who were covering news that were reporting stories which I just felt they weren't. I hear a lot of cigar podcasts. They'll tell a story because they saw it somewhere else, but they've not actually validated that it's correct.
Okay.
And because of that, I felt there was a real disservice being done, because I felt if I'm going to say something, it's got to be validated, right? And at the same time, I'm not going to start a rumor saying that company XYZ is going to be acquired by ABC, because when stories like that go out, then you have people working for these companies worried about their families and stuff. And I didn't feel that was a justice to do it to the industry. So this was kind of before the whole fake news thing came out. I just said basically, hey, look, what we're going to do is going to be validated. It's going to be hardcore. And yeah, we may be a little slower at getting the story out there. I don't care. I want to be the guy that at least folks can trust. They don't have to like me, but I could trust them. Hopefully, I've been somewhat successful with that.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's why I always kind of seem to find myself turning to Cigar Coop, your website first, not only for reviews but the news reporting that you do. And I've been really enjoying following what was going on at IPCPR. I just read your, I think I just read it today, the blog you did with the Giuliani being the keynote speaker there and everything.